Morning, everybody. Last night I was flicking through some notes, and my son said to me, "So what are you doing tomorrow, Dad?" I said, "Well, a bit of a challenge tomorrow because I'm talking to a group of people who are almost certainly bound to be a lot more intelligent than me." So he said, "Well, it's a normal day at work then, Dad." So here we are. This issue of training and intelligence is something I'd like to sort of get off my chest a bit. So, Jerry, in the context of, let's say, an everyday subject, potatoes, not something I know much about, of course, how would you rate the intelligence of this particular group in front of you? Well, everyday question.
I would say mixed.
Mixed,
Some are going to be pretty good, but others, like myself, are going to know very little.
Okay, so would everybody stand up, please? Would you sit down if, in the course of your career, you have had direct contacts in a professional basis with potatoes and potato varieties? So sit down if you're involved in potatoes in some way. Quite a few. So those of you left standing, you'll think of it, this question, you're thinking of it from a consumer point of view. And I will tap you on the shoulder. So if you're still standing, just watch out. If I ask you to name 3 potato varieties, can you do it? Those who feel they can't name 3 potato varieties, would you sit down, please? Okay. We're losing about 20%, Jerry?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. Those who would have trouble naming 10 potato varieties, would you sit down, please? 10 potato varieties. Okay. I use that point to illustrate that when I do my general talks on potatoes, we can't get beyond 1. So here in a group of enlightened individuals, we got to 3. But the world of the potato is something we eat every day, I would think, and it's something that is the mainstay of our diet. But it just goes to show, and I'll be making the point a little bit more in my talk, that this little jokey session is actually illustrative of society's detachment from understanding what goes on in the world of food production and in terms of what science does. So I'm particularly excited to be here today because training has been at the forefront of my career. I should have had a lot more of it, I think, but it's something that we've been passionate about. Just to put it in context before I get into the nub of what I want to say, obviously, I'm the technical manager for Waitrose, and I have a team of between 10 and 12 people, and there are new people coming in all the time. And whilst we talk about basis, which is a really important piece of work, the role of a professional within the supermarket industry is to look at all the things that we're talking about today. So although I'm going to focus on agriculture, and I'm going to go into a deep dive within agriculture, I could talk to you about food quality, which is an extremely important part of our work, particularly for Waitrose. I could talk to you about food safety, which is an extremely important part of our work. But I want to talk to you about agriculture because that is the point I want to make, that there are so many aspects that affect a supermarket like Waitrose. Now, one of the challenges for myself and my team is that I can't think of anywhere that actually offers the sort of training we need. This is probably the first government-led opportunity to be put before us, before Waitrose people and before our suppliers and people in this room. 10 years ago, we formed a relationship with Lancaster University and formed a responsible agronomy course. And that was a very expensive thing to do. It was very productive, and we had no problem filling those courses. And every time we mentioned the word training to our supply base and to Waitrose, we had no problem filling the courses. So I'm very optimistic, Jerry, that this particular program is going to be very, very successful. And it's unlike Alan Wilson to be supportive of the government, but it's Waitrose here today. So I'm very grateful for the significant investment that's been put into this program. Okay, so let's just return to agriculture. And I want to pick up on some of the things that our first speaker said. we all need to take on board this issue of climate change, the issue of population growth, of the influence the emerging economies are going to have on our daily lives, in defining what we mean by sustainability, and in trying to sort out society's disconnection from the work that we do. Now that's just a few things that was raised in that foresight report that you put up earlier. And I actually think, I'm not going for the honours list here, but I actually think the foresight report on the future of food and farming is the best and most significant report that I've read in my time. And if you haven't read that report, I would urge you to find a way of reading it. You can download it from the web very, very easily. And I say to people, if you want an in-depth analysis of Waitrose policy, then broadly it's within that report. There are things, though, that we have to sort out here and now. And I'm hoping that some way through this programme, there may be a contribution to be made to them. The list is as long as your arm, but I've just got a few things here. It's widely recognised that there's lots of knowledge sitting in with the science base that is not getting put out in the field. We have to sort that out. That's something that has to be done. Probably not the role of this particular project, but I'm very mindful that dissemination is a big issue. Integrated pest management, which has made great advances in the past few years, particularly in protected crops, really needs to rock on at field level. We're going to face some of these challenges, like feeding a larger, ever increasing population. We have to do it with the use of less chemicals. We have to sort out genetic modification. This science has been out there now for several years, and it's gained rapid acreage around the world. But in the UK, people are very resistant to the whole concept of those two words. But there's a new dawn, I feel, in this area, and we have to try and understand and more clearly articulate the benefits to the consumers of having perhaps a GM future, or not. If you want an organic future, just like IPM, I don't think the organic farming world has moved on significantly in the last 10 years. So what is the contribution of the people who come through this course to those types of key issues? And the final one is this issue of food waste. Again, it's in the foresight report. It's very clear there. We as a world and as a nation are wasting huge amounts of food. I'm not talking about the food we waste after it's purchased, which is one issue. I'm not talking about the food we waste through tight supermarket specifications. I'm talking about all the inputs that are used for food that never reaches its market. And this, sadly, this year has been probably the biggest and worst example of how much we've wasted over the years. Not through anyone's fault, but this is the world we're having to farm in now. We're having to farm in a world of excess and tension. What is the role that the students who are going to come through this partnership, what can they make to it? And finally, we have this issue of training. One of the things I've been at the forefront of is making sure that the training is demand-led. I hope whoever is coming through the ATP partnerships schemes, whatever the work they're doing, the first question is asked, can you present this to the consumer? Are they going to understand what you're doing? And if the answer is, I'm not sure, then I think there's a challenge there, not in every case. The other hope I have for this is that the consumers will respect the scientists. I certainly feel that's an issue that has come up over the last 20 years. And with the work that I do for Waitrose, I can see some fantastic work going on up and down the country and around the world. We have to find a way of presenting this to our consumers. What is the role of the Advanced Training Partnership in that? I also hope that whatever training is done within this group is actually meeting the needs of a wider UK strategy. I hope there could be some containment of what is actually being addressed and studied, to balance innovation with fitting into the UK strategy. It has to be relevant, and as I just said, it has to be marketable. Now, the way we've tackled it within Waitrose over the past few years, again, is very broad in line with what you're setting up here. It is the Waitrose policy to be very collaborative with our suppliers and growers. The alternative, there isn't an alternative. That is the group you have to do. We've had a agronomy group that's been working for Waitrose for the past 12 years. And that has been very useful for us in keeping our heads firmly on the ground, feet firmly on the ground, and actually engaging in the types of things that we can present to the consumer. There are only 5, or maybe more, but there are only 5 retailers in the country through which the food is actually channeled. And so we have to make sure that the decisions that we come to within Waitrose are the right ones for our farmers and for our suppliers, and that is why they are part of the decision-making process. To that end, over the last 2 years, we've been working on a project called the Waitrose Farm Risk Assessment. This is a survey of all our growers all around the world, and it's not something you can fail. It's not a tick box audit. It is something where we're asking them, what exactly on your farm are you struggling with? When we talk about soil organic matter or the issue of water, what does it mean to you? And what is the role of Waitrose and its supply base and the people we interact with, some of whom are in this room, in actually addressing that? So when we meet the scientists, wherever they may be, whatever country, whatever university, we're not talking just from an opinion that I think this is the problem or the government says this. We can actually take people to real farmers and present the challenges that are there. And the one thing we've learnt in doing that is that the challenges vary from farm to farm, from country to country. The other thing we've learnt over the past few years, and I'll just say this to put it into the context of the ATP, is that as it was mentioned in the Foresight report, soils, a big issue for the UK, water, an enormous issue, probably the most important. The issue of biodiversity and what that means and the value of ecosystems in food production, big issue. How we can reduce our man-made inputs, huge issue. And the issue of addressing food waste. But going down and focusing on one of those only leads to a problem elsewhere. And so the restraint we've put on ourselves and the way we interact with our scientific friends is to actually ensure we engage on a broad level on all of those things. So how will the ATP ensure that same analysis is put with all the processes that people come through this particular scheme? Why is today so important? Well, it's so important because not only is it the first of its type, we really are worried about the future. Those of you who have been directly involved with farming this year will share my concerns about some of the crops and the performance of some of land over this season. But I have to tell you that the UK is not alone. I find it hard to think, as I was driving up here, of a crop that we're selling at the moment that is performing well. Whether it's extreme winds, whether it's extremely cold temperatures or extremely warm temperatures, the world is becoming a very scary place to actually trading. And our best hope for the future is science. And whilst I am fully supportive of all the existing academics and the programs that are out there, having new blood come into it can only be a good thing. The other thing which has been made before, which I'm really excited about, is that I get a sense, and maybe I've been caught up in the Olympic spirit, but I get a sense there is this willingness for industry to perhaps step outside of its competitive edge and actually sit down and work together. And that's why I think the ATP partnership is particularly significant. Bringing science and the industry together is, I think, a key step forward. So to sum up, I think the need is staring us all in the face. Today we have a unique opportunity to move that forward. And certainly Waitrose will be fully supportive of this project and our partners who wish to partake in that. So therefore, Jerry, I think we have a very exciting future ahead, and I'm very happy to take questions on what I've just said.
Thank you very much, Alan.